adjust your dials. After yet another missed episode, we're coming to you for a double-length season finale episode of Arakko Public Radio. We are talking about 5 or 6 books from April 19th and 3 or 4, depending how you look at it, from April 26th, and marking the final issue, the finale of Sins of Sinister. This is the much less famous but equally important Rasputin 3, my one and only Omega Mutant Keegan. How's it going, buddy?
It is going good. I am glad that both of our complicated schedules can finally coalesce and we can get talking about things. I know. I've missed this. But, I do think that it's to everyone's benefit because now they do get an Arakko Public Radio Super Show.
Hell yeah. This week, we are talking Sins of Sinister with both Nightcrawlers 3 and Sins of Sinister Dominion, as well as New Mutants Lethal Legion number 2, Bishop War College number 3, X-Force number 39, the X-Cellent number 2, Betsy Braddock Captain Britain number 3, Deadpool number 6, X-Treme X-Men number 5, and kind of Invincible Iron Man number 5.
Woo! Got a lot.
Want to start with Sinister?
Let's start with Sinister. Right. I'm hyped for it.
We're going to talk Nightcrawlers 3, talk a little bit about it, and then jump straight into Dominion because it's one long story, basically. But written by Cy Spurrier, drawn by Alessandro Vitti, it opens with Mother Righteous recapping the last 900 years, describing heists she sent various minions on to steal magic artifacts meant to power the Reliquary Perilous. In the present, we see her and some of the newest Nightkin steal a phoenix egg, though her narration makes it clear she doesn't really need it. She's got plenty of artifacts from the last 9 centuries. She reveals that Dr. Nemesis has cloned 50 generations of Nightcrawler clones since the last issue, though each one continues to degrade as she helps one who is dying continue the tradition of bamfing into the world-formed force field. Mother Righteous consults her collaborator and minion, Dr. Nemesis, who has essentially spread to the point where he is her base, a giant head careening through space. She recaps many beats of the previous issues from her perspective, revealing that she banked on Destiny's actions in the name of love. Her reflections are interrupted with an announcement of a quickly approaching object. A crude map on a data page shows the trajectories of both the Eater of Sin and the Lonely Bullet, which converge at the target. The story cuts to Auntie Fortune summoning Vox Ignis, who shows up with Ghost Rider Galactus infused with all the spirits of vengeance. He pleads with Mother Righteous that they want him to die, but she points out that he was only ever a tool to her. The other object Destiny predicted, the Lonely Bullet, Juggernaut, pops into view. Turns out Destiny calculated this precise moment 1,000 years ago when they fired Juggernaut in the very first issue to kill Thanos. He's careened through space and he now plows through Galactus's head and the force field around the world farm. Surprisingly, the force field manages to survive, just barely. So Mother Righteous, one last time, callously discards one last Nightkin by having Auntie Fortune, her right-hand woman, bamf into it herself. When Vox Ignis questions if it was worth all the death, Righteous finally explains that the Nightkin sacrificing themselves were the most powerful parts of the Reliquary Perilous all along. That their sacrifices were given such religious weight by the Nightkin that they were in fact imbued with the power she'd sent them to find in all those relics. She also explains her goal was never to save the world from Sinister, and that she was so confident that things would be reset, her only goal was to give herself a leg up in the next reality by sending back information. The Ace of Hearts serves as a message in a bottle that sends information back in time to during a reset. Vox Ignis is horrified at her callous plan to discard 1,000 years of history, but Righteous reveals she needs the spirit of Variance's powers to feed the heart, and she separates Banshee. Battle-hardened Wagnerian arrives and threatens to kill Righteous to protect her baby, but Righteous uses her magic to hold her back, until Banshee stabs her in the foot. Righteous turns her attention to him instead, and they spar verbally for a moment until Righteous is stabbed through the heart by Wagnerine's tail. Nobody ever remembers the tail. Wagnerine gets her baby, and Banshee encourages her to make the most of the time she's got before the reset happens. She leaves, and Banshee is shot by someone who arrives to take the Ace of Hearts for herself. Robo Moira. It's a bummer we couldn't fit an episode in because this issue did have a ton going for it.
It had so much going on. And it was a lot of really good stuff. I really enjoyed this. Just to see all the plays from Mother Righteous's point of view was kind of like, oh wow, wow.
I am amazed at how quickly they turned her into a top tier character.
Mm-hmm.
Mother Righteous is so cool, and it's crazy that she is such a complex, well developed character that has existed for less than a year.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me. We talked all along about the different religious ties and allegories and just religions being built in this series.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so cool that it literally came back in the form of her admitting that was the plan all along, was their devotion, their sacrifice in the name of their devotion powered her powers.
Her powers,
I'm phrasing that really stupid. But
what is faith without believers is essentially the point of that.
So good. And I like that they so well captured the kind of ethical debate fans were having, or even just the apathy fans were having. The Sinisters all have this idea that the universe is going to get reset anyway, so nothing that happens to any of these people matter. And that's what a huge portion of the readership said heading into this was, well, why do I care about this event? We know where it ends. It ends with everything being reset.
Right.
So I love that there are characters acknowledging the callousness of that. But they're saying, well, no, we all lived for 1,000 years. Like, these were real lives that are being just cast aside. And in a way, all of those readers have a stand-in the villains of this series. That like that is the audience stand-in at this point, because the vast majority of the audience at some point said, well, yeah, nothing that happens to any of these characters matters because we all know it's going to be reset.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What a clever way to make something that, in a sense, doesn't count more than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and way to make us all a little more introspective about how we treat these fictional characters' lives. At the end of the day, in what way are any of their lives any less important than any other fictional life? Like all of their lives are eventually reset. Like that's the very nature of comic book storytelling. So
it's all made up.
Yep. I am a little butthurt that it seems like that is the end of Wagnerine's story.
Me too. I want Wagnerine back so badly.
No spoilers for Dominion, but she don't show up there.
No, she do not.
And I was really hoping that we would see some version of her. And maybe we still will. We've got plenty of stories still to be told, but it definitely seems like she got a conclusion here that was pretty definitive. And
I think so. Although, like, since Mother Righteous is going to continue to be a player in the game very clearly, you know, who knows?
Does she get her revenge some other way?
Right.
That would be cool. All right, Chimera Watch. We've been doing it every week. Pretty sure technically we had none. You're more welcome to fact check me. I don't think we met anyone new. I do really dig Anti-Fortune being basically a preserved brain that astral projects her young self. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Also, Ghost Rider Galactus, definitely not one, but surely counts for like half points because he was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that was extremely cool. So I think just on the sense that it was extremely cool, we can allow it, right?
Yeah. And Nemesis spreading to the point where he is the spaceship, pretty cool.
Yeah, that was fun. I
hadn't really noticed until we were just talking about it. Not the only giant head in space this week.
True.
Were you gonna say something about him though? About Nemesis?
Well, I was just gonna. I feel like it's gotta be like a reference to something. I just don't know what.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the space opera stuff has been so like steeped in Star Wars, Star Trek, like all that pulpy stuff. There probably is like a '60s space movie where the ship is a giant.
Yeah, it's either like a movie maybe an anime a book I haven't read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a reference to something, I bet.
I am just really quick flinging through this issue, looking to see if I see any chimeras, just because I'm interested now. But no, none.
Which, I mean, it kind of makes sense. That's like 1,000 years in, all she's trying to do is keep the Nightkin farm going at all. So if all the Nightcrawlers are just Nightcrawler, that's good enough. That's all she can get out of them 50 generations in.
That does make sense.
I want to know your thoughts on Moira being a major player again.
Hopeful.
Okay.
You know, I liked Moira being a major player when she was a major player up until, you know, the X lives and death happened. I'm hopeful that something good comes of it, something interesting.
I mean, it seems obvious she's going to be relevant to Fall of X, so
yeah,
maybe they'll be able to give her character some depth. I feel like Hickman had given her a really interesting angle by the end of Inferno.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was clearly enemy number one, but like also she wasn't truly evil. Like she had a justification, and then I feel like X Lives and X Deaths basically, we've talked about it, made her into mustache twirling super. Like, she literally steals people's skin.
yeah, we were very down on her for a while.
So if this can peel back some layers and give us a Moira with depth again, I'm super into it. And all of these current writers have kind of given us reason to believe they can.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone can do it, they can. And you know, we still got some time with the denouement of the Sins of Sinister.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about it this upcoming week. Both issues are in some ways tied to it because we've got the Immortal X-Men that's an immediate follow-up to Dominion, and then the Fall of X book's gonna before the fall Sons of X, that's gonna follow up on all of the side of the story. So true. I think we got a lot of epilogue that's gonna clear up some stuff for us.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get to an epilogue, we have to finish the story. We are the anti-Cody Rhodes. We're not gonna settle for some B-tier championship on the other brand that our daddy didn't even know existed.
We're getting our dad's belt.
Yeah, we're getting our dad's belt. Sinister Dominion, you ready?
I am ready.
Sinister Dominion, written by Kieran Gillen, drawn by Paco Medina and Lucas Warneck, opens with Mr. Sinister standing over John Ironfire's body, as seen in Storm of the Brotherhood #3, asking Moira where she is, presumably on walkie-talkies. She's at the vault, hoping Sinister convinced John Ironfire to open it. Their banter is interrupted by the Juggernaut bullet doing its thing. So we sort of took a step back a few, 10 minutes, and then it catches up with what we just talked about. Moira announces she's going to kill the clone and start the reset. Sinister protests, but a not so dead John Ironfire spears him, revealing he used his ability to turn his blood to metal to survive the betrayal. As Moira heads into the vault, Ironfire chokes Sinister. We see Beast has taken control of Emma's forces, and she orders the Cuckoos to drop the Quiet Council's psychic barricades, giving Xavier and Sin, who's busy forcefully spreading Serenity, the heads up on everything going on. Realizing the significance of Moira clones, he decides to take over, astral projecting out of Beast's stomach and putting out a call to all his dreamers. As John Ironfire and Sinister realize Xavier is assaulting them, John slices his forehead and uses the blood to form a helmet fit for the leader of the Brotherhood. Sinister immediately respects the move and congratulates him on using Magneto's trick to block the psychics. John still intends to kill him, but Sinister suggests a truce by offering him some Bobby Drake DNA to produce even more blood. The newly amped up Ironfire takes off to strike Xavier, who mistakes him for Magneto. John assures him he isn't Eric, but he was always right as he strikes through him, Xavier as Ego, the living planet, which was just awesome to look at. Sinister reaches Moira at the door to the vault. They duke it out over whether Sinister gets to upload his information or not, and Sinister actually convinces her to let him do it. He uploads the data before deciding to try his other contingency. Turns out, embedded in his gene tampering is a failsafe where he can harvest every X gene carrier, killing everyone and achieve Dominion. He does that instead and is swatted away. Turns out another one of the X clones presumably, has already achieved dominion. Despondent, Sinister pouts. It was all for nothing. As Ironfire approaches and beheads him for killing an entire galaxy. Moira resets the galaxy. Sinister wakes up at the beginning of Immortal X-Men number 10 and starts his download, surprised it holds over 1,000 years of information. Instead, there's an explosion, and he gets a message, a recording from Moira explaining everything with the Ace of Hearts and the fact that he will never achieve dominion. Then the entire engine explodes. But it turns out their X genes were deactivated, so reality still exists. Finally, Moira 7 RP4 is grown. And that is an angry Rasputin 4 who immediately takes Sinister into custody. Mother Righteous discovers a new wing in this library that is the Sanctum Malefica, and it happens to be full of her own notes from a now deleted future. On Krakoa, we see the surviving Quiet Council storming to arrest Sinister for his big attack in Immortal 10 when Destiny suddenly stops, feels sudden massive changes to the future. An ecstatic Rasputin arrives with Sinister in custody, and after filling everyone in, Sinister is banished to the pit. Rasputin introduces Mother Righteous, who gives a very selective recap and is hailed as a hero. She delivers the bad news. Hope, Xavier, Emma, Exodus are all potentially infected with Sinister genes. Because remember, he already killed them in Immortal 9. So they decide it's not good enough to step down from leadership. They have to sequester themselves to the pit. And so the end of the event is the 4 of them being taken down into the pit while Storm thanks Mother Righteous on behalf of all of Krakoa. Oh, that was such a good ending.
Yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal.
The fact that that it was Storm thanking Mother Righteous, the one who seemed like she actually could be ahead of everything. Storm seemed like she saw through Sinister shit, she sees through Shaw's shit, but she fell for MR's shit. So good, dude. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. What an end. Ugh.
Also, the recap was already so long. I couldn't fit in some of the just amazing comedy moments Kieran Gillen still managed to fit in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Kitty Pryde has this line when Rasputin explains that she's from a post-apocalyptic future that they have to prevent from happening. She's like, "Oh, this is one of those." Just the delivery is so good. I think I'm gonna make a T-shirt of that panel, but it'll be like, "Oh, this is one of those podcasts," and then our logo. Your boy, John Ironfire.
John Ironfire,
going full Magneto with a helmet made of blood.
The helmet made of blood, and just like him being like a helmet befitting of the leader of the Brotherhood. It's just like, let's go.
Also, if Magneto comes back, he needs to adopt the horns. The Magneto helmet with horns was a perfect upgrade. I loved it.
Absolutely.
Ironfire, he was kind of another MVP. His line when he attacked Xavier as Ego, great. Such a great scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not Eric, but he was right. Just
So we kind of had a feeling. Well, we knew Rasputin was coming back somehow, and we had a feeling it would be Mother Righteous somehow retained information. Really interesting the way they chose to go about that. That it was Moira who actually did the reset.
Yeah,
Sinister should have had the download, but they found a different means for bringing both of them back. Speaking of different means of bringing people back, Joe of X, wherever you are, you owe me $5. No one went swimming through a black hole.
It's true.
No, but seriously, Rasputin being a creation of the Moira engine, or the remnants of it, was a pretty cool move I did not see coming.
Yeah.
Mother Righteous getting an additional wing to her library is a super interesting imagery for the way information's delivered to her.
Yeah, I kind of like it though, because it's all magical and stuff, so
it makes me I get she is probably just gonna be an X-Men villain and probably isn't. I mean, I hope Mother Righteous is here to stay, right? Like, I hope she's the real deal, but there's always a chance she's just a one-off. But I would love to see her up against Doctor Strange. I feel like that would be a really fun route to go at some point.
I don't think that you get a design that's that cool and that hot, and then you throw it away. I just
do you keep all 4? Like, are we gonna have?
I don't think you need to.
Dr. Stasis all around? Yeah,
I don't think you need to keep all 4. I think you can get away with, at least just Sinister and Righteous for a while. Maybe they come back in other ways at some point, but
I do feel like Mother Righteous has earned her place as a core member of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Dude, how cool would a movie... I want to see a live-action version of Mother Righteous so bad now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just... they have fun with a lot of the magic mystic stuff, and I think that she would add a lot of depth to it.
At what point did she become the main villain of this? Like, I feel like it was so subtle that it shifted to her.
Just the shift was so subtle, but also like telegraphed. Like, of course, the person that's willing to sacrifice so many lives, just throwing willing participants at a barricade is evil.
Do you remember issue 1, issue 2-ish? Us being like, is she actually a good guy? Is she like the one? Is she his love? Is she like all of the good parts of him extracted? No. She's just as fucked as all the other Essexes. What I was going to ask was, who do you think achieved Dominion? Is it actually one of the other 3?
That's
can they ever actually tell us?
I don't think they can.
Like,
I think that has to stay a secret at least for a while.
Or maybe ever. Like, how do you ever unopen that can of worms once you're like, oh, there's this character that lives outside of time? Like, they can never face a consequence. So you can't give a character literally you exist outside of all time and space and can never ever have anything bad ever happen to you because you have achieved Dominion. Like, so I feel like they're gonna have to call that's just a mystery. They'll have to say a mystery theoretically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know who could achieve Dominion at that point. How did they do it?
A random person on Reddit threw out it'll be Cyclops.
Oh,
because he's likely dying in fall from a lot of the teasers we've gotten. So that's a good way to have him die unless he comes back in a few years by revealing, I can't die, I've achieved Dominion. But I do think it would be most interesting if it's not one of the Sinisters. And that could easily be explained that the only reason he assumed it was one of the other 3 is his ego won't let him assume anyone other than an Nathaniel Essex pulled it off.
Right, like, exactly.
He had no evidence to assume that. He just goes, oh no, it was one of the others. Because
he doesn't know who achieved Dominion.
He just knows they flicked him away.
Yeah.
Well, I also saw a lot of people theorizing that it's him from one of Moira's past lives, most likely the one where he had the pit. But if that's the case too, I just like I don't know. It's tricky. If I was writing, I wouldn't have a way out of it if I decided to reveal who it was. That said, I think it could be really cool if the right person did reveal that to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, now I'm wondering. I'm just like, what could it be?
There's lots of cool options out there. The Cyclops thing, it's fun in like an irony kind of way that it was someone from the Summers family. And, Chimera Watch, but I don't think there's any in this one either, right?
Maybe kind of, sort of, because they have the Namornauts.
You're right. That was the debut of the Namornauts. They were cool.
Yeah. And then, like those, like any of that kind of stuff, even like Beast Cuckoos.
Well, we saw them before, though, right? They were in...
That's true.
Like, he stepped up. He went from being Emma's, like, groveling, whatever, right-hand man, hand of the king, like when we were talking the Game of Thrones references, to he decided to take charge. The Cuckoos didn't seem real into him being in charge. And then I loved how easily Xavier just was like, oh, well, you should have called me earlier, but all right, I'll take it over. Boom.
Yeah. Do we count Xavier as Ego the Planet as a chimera?
I think he was just psychically controlling it, but that was
Fair.
cool enough. Again, kind of like the Galactus thing, counts for half points.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, do we just count that for the fact that it was cool imagery?
I cannot get over how cool it was that they set up as basically a throwaway gag in the first issue. Here's Juggernaut getting shot through Thanos, and people talked about that. That was a highly talked about page just because it was so off the wall, and then it ends up being one of the most critically important moments in the full 1,000 years. Was that they fired him for that exact moment, so that he ended up at just so good.
It was
Just
so good.
God, I cannot get over how good these guys are. This whole writing team.
Yeah.
We know that the issue of Immortal that comes out next week, the kind of epilogue-ish issue, literally opens with them getting those four out of the pit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really hoping that that's kind of a misdirect, that they're getting out just momentarily to take a vote or to be tested in some way, and then they're getting thrown back in. Because I think that's a really interesting plot point to have them in there for a while.
I hope so too. And if it is that they get pulled out right away next week, then this is why the solicitations are the devil.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the previews, because that wasn't in the solicitations. That was in like those preview pages they put up. But although I will say it was originally not even in the pages released now. It was in those pages they showed at the Comic-Con like a month ago. So it was early enough that it was a real dick move if they really are just being let out. Unlike the complaints about the people before the story started about that makes the entire event not matter. Like, that'll make the ending kind of feel like it didn't matter if it's wrapped up that quickly.
Yeah. Unless they have some sort of good turn to make it make sense for them to come out.
Kieran Gillen has earned some runway here. He's earned the right to get a chance to prove it to us.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely.
Do you have anything else on the Dominion issue specifically before we jump over to talking about the crossover as a whole?
Nothing about it specifically. No, I don't think.
So let's talk the Sinister as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. If I had to put a 1 to 10 score on it, it's a perfect 10 to me. It might be my favorite pure X event of all time.
I am inclined to agree with you. I think I'd rate it a 10 as well. If anything, it's because I have to go back and read X of Swords. You know?
That's fair. I don't know if you saw, I want to get together to make up for last week's episode. I want to get together a round table, and we're going to kind of do some off-the-cuff updated rankings. I want to see where everyone is sitting with their X-Men crossovers. You know I love X of Swords, but I feel like this, for me, what set this apart was the cohesion. The fact that it was a tight 11 issues.
That is the big thing.
The weekly hype, every issue mattered. Dude.
Yeah, I think to get in, get out, do 11 issues, you're not derailing everything. You're just telling a quick 11-issue story that's at that level of quality, that's that important, does that many new things, has that many cool ideas, and is that much fun. Yeah, you know what? I don't need to reread shit. It's my favorite.
It's so good.
Yeah.
This has been an amazing year. I can't believe the year, like, we lucked out when we decided to do this podcast.
Absolutely.
They put on, and we're not talking, like, Judgment Day, I do not consider an X-Men event. It was a Marvel event that was X-Men heavy, but we got to cover that, and then they immediately head into this, and, like, it is a golden age right now. Kieran Gillen can steer any ship, and they need to keep Al Ewing and Cy Spurrier as his, like, hype men, because they make a great team.
Absolutely. They're such a good trio to work with, and I would read anything that they wanted to write about. And truly, like, I know that you've said it before, and I feel like you've caught a little bit of flack for saying it because Hickman is so beloved, but this might be my favorite, just like X era now.
Yeah, I definitely I will fall on that sword. I prefer Destiny, like the last year from when Destiny started, when Immortal 1 and X-Men Red 1 came out, to now, over the Hickman era. I think the three of them, like, co running the office has been even more enjoyable than Hickman running the office was for me.
Yeah.
And I understand that's a minority opinion. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, because it has been an amazing year, and I'm really hoping it can sustain through Fall of X. I think as long as they're given the loose leash they are right now, I think it can be. I think they can definitely keep it going.
I think so too. I mean, it is the most interesting thing going in comics right now. They're like, as far as like groups of titles. There's sure there's single titles out there that are great. But when we're talking about groups of titles or just like eras and stuff like that, like it's unparalleled.
Oh yeah, no, especially I was gonna say if you want to specify superhero comics, but when you're talking about a wide brand like that, I don't know if there is another, like, something non-superhero related either. For an entire, like, division or office, there is no one close to what they're doing. You're absolutely right. I can think of, like, if I do my top 10 for this year, there'll be books in the top 5 that aren't X-Men, but yeah, the entire X-Men office will be in the top 10. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many amazing books here. They all work together so well. So I agree with you. There's nothing that compares.
Yeah.
Going in, I knew I was going to love this event because Sinister is my favorite X-Men villain, and it was all my favorite writers, and I love alternate futures, and I built it up before it started. Curiously enough, this event might have made it so Sinister is no longer my favorite X-Men villain. I might be full on board with the Mother Righteous train. She might be the best X-Men villain of all.
I was wondering if Mother Righteous took the throne.
She's basically a better version of Mr. Sinister in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. I mean,
just so great.
Better at planning for sure.
Absolutely. Having a Sinister that embraces magic is so interesting and such a cool twist, and she's a character created basically from scratch in 2023 now, but and yet she's so unique and so good. All right.
I love them.
I don't care where we go from here. We've got so many books to get through. I have them kind of in a crapshoot order on the notes there. Is there one you want to tackle next?
Honestly, you want to just go in order and hit Lethal Legion?
New Mutants, Lethal Legion #2, written by Charlie Jane Anders, drawn by Anita Balam, opens with Wolfsbane and Morgan stumbling into an anti-mutant survivalist camp while fleeing the generic monster living in the sewer from last issue. Talk about trapped between a rock and a hard place. Meanwhile, Escapade, Cerebella, and Scout, dressed as villains, show up to Nefaria's castle in their ruse to join. The Count announces the tryouts as a chance to become legends, but a funny data page reveals the therapy session where Nefaria decided to hold these tryouts because he basically feels inferior to all the other supervillains. Wolfsbane and Morgan discover a second underground camp, this time just a generic homeless camp. She figures out these are the same tunnels where the Marauders killed the Morlocks in the Mutant Massacre. They decide to draw the creature deeper into the tunnels and away from this camp too. The first round of tryouts go easy for the New Mutants, and back on Krakoa, Mirage and Karma look for Scout and Cerebella. Nefaria interviews Escapade, disguised as Blaster Dame. I love their villains. Costumes are so good. And convinces her to get drunk. Wolfsbane manages to tame the monster that's been chasing them. Drunk Escapade gives away their identity just as Cerebella is about to successfully heist. Oh, and she accidentally steals Gabby's claws? Drunk teenagers. Okay, so this has been a kind of weird mini so far.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fun stuff to it. It feels oddly reliant and yet disconnected from the arc of New Mutants that Charlie Jane Anders wrote. Like, because she took over, was it 3 issues or 4? How many ever issues it was, and it was about these characters. But then the story feels like it relies on us knowing their characterizations there, while simultaneously not building on any of that. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm really not sure how I feel about the mini as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, we're only 2 issues in, so I'm not hating enough to be like, I'm tired of this. I want to give it more leeway. We're going to talk about others in this same kind of tread water between Destiny of X and Fall of X minis that I dislike more. Like, I feel like I'm more invested in this one than some of the others we're going to talk about. But at the same time, it does just leave me wanting to know what's actually next for the New Mutants.
Yeah.
Like, this feels like this is treading water before we get the real next New Mutants arc.
I mean, yeah, these are absolutely, the filler episodes if New Mutants was an anime,
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, okay, but let's do something with it. Let's do some more work with it. It's
my protective nature over Laura. Anytime Laura's misused her, and that does extend down to Honey Badger. Like, that does extend to Gabby.
Yeah.
And her characterization here is not too great either. Like, I don't know why they included her just to be the third wheel, essentially, for the trio that are heisting. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think I feel like, and this might be a hot take, but why does it seem like everyone has such a hard time characterizing the Wolverine family?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they all are getting the short end of the stick a lot recently.
Well, they're such great characters when they're done right, so it's really frustrating that no one seems to be able to get them right these days.
Yeah, but it's a fun enough mini. It's not as weird as some of the others. Like, I still am enjoying reading it for the most part.
Yeah, tying in Mutant Massacre was, like, for how kind of lighthearted and funny a lot of the issue was, that was a good way to bring the mood back down for a couple pages. It's interesting because New Mutants seems like a book that's trying to bring in new fans. Like, it's the here's the young characters, so it's weird to tie in an 80s story that a lot of them probably won't get the reference points, but
right.
Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's teaching some comic book history to them in a cool way, because it was accessible. Like, the letter was meaningful, and maybe it's a good thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I will be honest. The majority of my thought is I can't wait to find out what's next.
Yeah, same. And I mean, like, the thing is like, Charlie Jean Anders is doing a good enough job that, like, I want the next thing. I would be happy with her.
Yeah.
Steering that ship.
Just give us proof that is a ship being steered and not just a dinghy floating in the water. Like, let us know there's a direction we're going.
Yeah,
I want to know that it's headed somewhere.
Especially because, like, this feels so disconnected from the ending of New Mutants initially as well, that it seems like Charlie has come in and has been handed 2 incomplete stories and said, make these work. And I want to see what can happen with, like, a full, complete, fleshed out story.
Well, and again, it's disconnected, but it still relies on it enough that it's not going to be accessible to new readers. I don't understand who it's for.
Right.
But
yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I suppose.
Well, and if we're getting speculative, we got all the Fall of X books, and there's no New Mutants on it. So
yeah.
I don't know how long we're going to be waiting. It's a frustrating thought.
Yeah.
War College?
Let's do War College.
Bishop, War College number 3, written by Jay Holtham and drawn by Sean Damian Hill, opens with the 2 bishops addressing the Quiet Council of Earth-63. Their Professor X links them all psychically so they could share their respective histories for a better understanding. The council is shocked. He comes from a world filled with so much hate, and when he mentions he needs to find Tempo, he discovers in this reality she's not only a mutant, but is an important human scientist. Back at 616, our Moira and Feilong talk about the importance of finding the pit. The Fenris twins are still working on it, though Andreas is still currently merged with Amos. Andrea uses a knockout gas grenade to separate them. Orcus is ordered to tie up a boss and restart the drill. Wrong slide, and the rest of the War College kids realize the Fenris twins' plans and how dangerous opening the pit could be. Back on Earth 36, the bishops decide to go talk to their version of Tempo in hopes of finding ours. Earth 63, Destiny warns him that there's trouble a-brewing. In their New York City, which has peaceful harmony between mutants and humans in contrast to ours, they meet with Dr. Heather Tucker. He confronts her briefly before an explosion interrupts them, and they are confronted by the Human Liberation Front. Somehow this book has way too much going on and way too little going on at the same time.
Yeah, like, honestly, my thoughts on it right now is, like, this sure is a comic book that is happening. Like,
we're past the halfway mark.
Yeah.
None of these plots have moved enough to be past the halfway mark.
It's moving like a snail on all fronts. And I'm just like, why? Why can't we just have like one plot at this point? Like,
I feel like you could easily have a story that's the story about the Andreas twins working for Orcus trying to open the pit. Perfectly interesting comic book. You could have all this Bishop stuff. Be perfectly interesting comic book. But the way this is paced, neither of those plots develop enough.
Yeah.
Literally, all that happened in the B plot was she pulled out her grenade and it immediately resolved at the big cliffhanger of last issue. That's not interesting.
Yeah. It's not that it's bad. I'm just not enjoying it. Nothing is happening that makes me feel anything. You know, the most I've enjoyed is like, oh man, these Earth 63 designs sure are cool.
Yeah, they look really cool, and like I like the idea. The premise is actually pretty cool. That it's a world where the humans and the mutants never had conflict. Although clearly the existence of Human Liberation Front is putting a lens on that premise. But we're not getting to explore that. They're not spending any time exploring it. We're getting really, really decompressed scenes that stretch things that could be just a panel or two into multiple pages, so that this story that's already crowded with too many plots is also moving at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
And we have 2 issues left to resolve this, and we don't really know what the conflict is yet. Yeah. Why is he there? How did he get booted to another world, and what is he going to do to help this world? He only has 40... He has his share of 42 pages or whatever it is after the ads get taken out. Is it 20 or 21 pages?
Something like that.
He's got basically 20 pages to help them, to figure out what help they need, help them, and then make it back to our world to presumably save Amos. And we still haven't seen a single college, we haven't seen him actually teaching anyone jack shit yet.
Right. There's nothing War College about this.
Yeah. I don't hate it. It's an interesting premise. I want to like it. I enjoy what's there, but I'm really confused by how little is there. Yeah. I feel bad. We got to get Owen on for issue 4 or 5, because I know he in general really is enjoying this series, and I want him to sell me on the love for it. Because
me too. Absolutely.
And he had a good sales pitch for the issue he was on to talk about, so I want him on to hype me up about it again, because I struggled coming up with even things to say because so little happened.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I'm at the end of what I feel about it right now. I'm just like, well, okay.
Well, hey, do you want to talk about a book I do have feelings about? Yeah. I don't promise any of them are good.
Let's dive right in, huh?
X-Force, written by Benjamin Percy, drawn by Robert Gill, opens with the Quiet Council discussing Beast. With Nightcrawler and Sinister conveniently just not there, why would Percy have to bother addressing timeline or the fact that it's a shared universe? Leave that to the real writers. While they all seem to acknowledge how far Beast has fallen, they manage to sidestep responsibility and instead of holding him accountable for the literal war crimes, focus on if his actions are bad for Krakoa. In the end, they decide to just ignore Beast, letting him operate on his own, while Sage is put in charge of X-Force, with a Quiet Council member on the team for accountability. Colossus volunteers. Sever Blackmore decides to release all of Beast's prisoners, while Deadpool helps Black Tom with ideas for a new X-Force base, including a Mount Rushmore of just Deadpool faces. Luckily, Sage has her own idea, a treehouse that is symbolically both part of and apart from Krakoa. Laura Kinney is playing a bar game that's basically just punch each other real hard, but Sage shows up and recruits her to be the new Wolverine on the team. She doesn't get to celebrate for long, though. All of Beast's old prisoners and experiments start crash landing on Krakoa, and Laura is surprised at how good it feels to save the day, even though she was just on the X-Men, like, yesterday? Anyway, the issue ends with old man Quentin Quire showing up with a new glowing pink sword and announcing he needs help. So, we'll get to Laura. We will get there, because I have thoughts, but Storm is still the best Quiet Council member.
Yeah.
We just talked about how she kind of blew it with Mother Righteous, right? She didn't see through her shit.
Mm-hmm.
But she's the only one here, the only one who's like, hey guys, that stuff Beast dude was pretty messed up. Maybe we shouldn't just forgive him. The only one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kate doesn't speak up. Emma doesn't speak up. No one speaks up but Storm.
Everyone is just doing a terrible job. And of course, Chuck, being the normal asshole he is like, was he really that bad? Like, come on. Like, what the fuck? Anyways.
Yeah. I think this is where Percy is going to be forced to play ball with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, and it's probably going to play out more in Wolverine than in X-Force, but like Logan's going to catch Beast at some point, right?
Yeah.
And he's going to bring him to the Quiet Council, and they're going to, again, refuse to deal with it, right? They're going to do some slap on the wrist thing. And that's what causes, I assume, Logan and whoever else, like that's going to be the fall of X, it's going to just continue to push out the X-Men who have a soul, who have a conscience. And that's how eventually we're going to end up with, there's one of the solicitations has the tagline of like the Quiet Council is now just one. Presumably it's everyone abandons Xavier, right? And this has to be tied into that. Eventually, this has to bite him in the ass.
Right. And if it doesn't, if this isn't tied into that, then like what a wholesale failure on this book's part.
Completely. Absolutely. Not that it makes it not a failure if it does tie in. There's still plenty of other ways it's a total failure, but you're right. And that would be especially bad. Storm was, again, a stand-in for us, I felt like. Like she was there screaming, like the audience was, no, you guys, like, he's a piece of shit. But it was, I made the joke in my summary, it was really frustrating that just because they didn't want to answer where this lines up with Sense of Sinister, just don't put Nightcrawler and Sinister in the scene. It's a really important Quiet Council meeting, but they're just not present.
They're just out on like on a stroll or something.
Yeah. Like, too bad there's not substitute Quiet Council members, like substitute teachers. Old man Quentin Quire, pretty cool. I like the design. Do you remember? I brought it up a few issues ago because we were really afraid that Peacock Tattoo Man was gonna be Quentin Quire. That they really hyped up. The next time you see Quentin Quire, it's gonna be just a badass move. You're just gonna blow minds. You're gonna go.
I was like, this might be my nitpick corner thing since it was just like a last page reveal instead of like him actually doing anything. But the next time you see Quentin Quire, it will be epic. And then it's just like, okay, so he was like a pink Merlin from Disney's Sword in the Stone. Okay. Like, what?
Well, it's also... Maybe if we had never seen the age play thing before.
Right.
We literally just saw this played out with Old Man Cable became Kid Cable for a while. Like, we've seen it. We've seen characters switch from being the kid on the team to the old man and then back again. It's just...
Yeah. We literally right now have old Laura.
That's
literally
true.
Right
That's
now.
True. Excuse me. You mean Talon?
Sorry. My bad. But yeah, I'm just like, I'm like, I'm gonna give it next issue to be epic before I truly like, come down hard on it.
I think it's fair though. We did see him, and that
Like
other than him for some reason having a new version of the Soul Sword that's pink, like, nothing that exciting.
Yeah, like by the legal letter of the law, we have now seen Quentin Quire once again, and I quite frankly did not feel epic about it. I am willing, out of the kindness of my heart, to give it one more issue. Because
before we file our litigation,
before I start going on a full-blown rant, that's what I'm willing to do. That is my kindness to you, Benjamin Percy.
But Mr. Percy, let's make it clear, you are not getting off without a rant today, because we need to talk about Laura.
Bring it.
One. Laura has had a whole lot of characterization in the last year, 2 years, 3 years. Like, she had Exterminators. We saw her personality. And here, she's like right back to feral, I just want to fight in a bar brawl thing. But even more egregious, and I called it out already, but she was just on the X-Men. Got hailed as a hero because she was on the X-Men. She was just on the Exterminators. They got hailed as heroes because they beat up, Dracula's cronies. She knows what it's like to be a hero. I don't think she had to join the mutant CIA and be like, oh, being a part of this covert operation that almost never does its things publicly has given me a new taste of what it's like to be a public hero and be praised for doing heroic things. I guess I will join you, Sage. That made zero sense from both a what X-Force is standpoint and a who Laura Kinney is now standpoint. You're on notice, Benjamin Percy. You're on notice.
I mean, how hard is it? You're not even playing ball with X-23 Deadly Regenesis or whatever. Like,
we're seeing this play out in a really boring retro miniseries coming out right now that's supposed to take place 5-10 years ago. So she learned this lesson.
Like, you're not even playing ball with that?
Yeah.
Like, what?
You're right. We're getting a lot of mischaracterized Wolverines these days, and I'm not real happy about it.
No.
When Talon is getting the best characterization in the Brood issue, where her and the crew all have some bonding, like, that's a bad sign when that is the best Laura Kinney characterization we get in a month that has like 9 Laura Kinney issues.
Yeah,
and Wagnerine was pretty cool.
But that's not even a true family snicked member, you know. Yeah. Like,
this is fair. You're on notice, Marvel Comics. Fix your Wolverine problems.
Fix it. You have so many, and it's so easy to make them all people's favorites.
You have so many, and they're all awesome. Like, when Logan is the least interesting, when the original is somehow the one I care by far the least about, that tells you have a good crew of people.
And Percy's still been getting that one wrong, too.
That's true, too. I hadn't really ever thought about it, but the family snicked. If I had to rank them, I would rank the original the lowest, because I do love me some Gabby. And you know I've got Laura number 1, so...
Yeah.
And...
Out of respect for me, you'd put Fang somewhere up there.
I'm not the world's biggest Fang fan, but he is really interesting. So yeah, it probably would bump Logan all the way to the bottom. But anyways, X-Force. You know, Percy got some compliments from us in the last, maybe both of the last issues read, at least the last one read. But all kudos removed. Give me back the cookie. You are demoted back to my least favorite.
It's true.
I'm making the written by Benjamin Percy t-shirt. It's happening. Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain.
Betsy Braddock. Let's do it.
And we're only at an hour right now, so we're actually doing okay.
Yeah.
Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain number 3, read by T.D. Howard and drawn by Vasco Georgiev, opens with Brian Braddock and Megan leaving Betsy to babysit little Maggie while they go to a show in London. Betsy consults with some of her multiversal counterparts about Morgan Le Fay, learning that she's been squarely in 616 for a while. They quickly figure out why when Brian and Megan end up brawling with Morgan's Captain Britain, that Fury that was painted with the Union Jack. Betsy shows up to save the day by tricking the Fury into thinking Brian died, and her and Rachel go visit Pete Wisdom and Faiza Hussein for some news. Betsy is worried she made a mistake cutting herself off completely from Saturnine, And Rachel, the ever-jealous girlfriend, is not too happy about that. Morgan has apparently grown impatient with Ruben and decides to just discard him. In the end, Betsy meets with Tony Stark, while Morgan instead meets with Victor Von Doom. All right. This has become like the normal for Teenie Howard's Otherworld miniseries. I think she was told this was an ongoing and it got cut to a mini or something.
Mm-hmm.
There was no reason for them to just discard the Ruben plot here unless it was a matter of, oh, your 10 issues is now 5, and so you have to wrap it up. It just seemed really weird that they built that up and then literally just discarded it in this issue.
I have to agree. Yeah, it seems like, Teenie Howard just keeps getting the rug pulled out, and it's, I don't know, it seems unfair. Yeah.
They're not my favorite stories, but they are fun enough that they should be given the runway they need. If it's gonna only be a 5-issue story, your writers need to know that in time to actually make a coherent 5-issue story.
The amount of time that we spent waiting on that man with the goddamn peacock tattoo, and we can't even get a full Betsy Braddock. Like, nah.
It's absolutely infuriating. And like I said, I'm not even like the world's biggest fan, but even as just a moderate fan, it just seems like for justice to be served, she should be allowed to tell her whole story.
It's not even that I particularly care about these characters. I don't really care about the other world stuff at all, but Teenie Howard deserves better.
Yeah, agreed. I do think the setup of bringing in Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom from Morgan Le Fay story should be really fun. I really enjoy when they allude to past stories. If that, like, I don't want a full-on Percy thing where like there's a reveal of, oh, this villain is the son of this villain from '84. You have to have read all of Claremont to truly appreciate why they matter. But just including, hey, like these two have been tied to her for a while, and they're both getting brought in now. Oh, it's gonna raise the stakes. That to me is a cool way to incorporate history while still pushing the story forward.
Yeah, it's way more fun when it's more of like a you know, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna throw in I think I called it. I feel like the Rachel being jealous of Saturnine thing is totally supporting. I don't know if you remember. I don't remember if I said this issue 1 or last issue, but I think that the long-term setup here is that Rachel's going to take over the role of what Merlin and Saturnine had, like the head of the Starlight Citadel. I don't remember what that actual position is called, but like the head of all magic. I think Rachel's going to get up there eventually.
Yeah, I think that tracks.
I think setting up that she's jealous of Saturnine's apparent love for Betsy, which I don't remember being. I mean, maybe at some point it was in the subtext more than I ever realized. I always thought she just begrudged her because she wanted Brian back. I don't remember there being that much like tension, but maybe there was.
I don't think there was as much as they seem to say there was, but
all right, so maybe that's a little bit of retcon of oh yeah, she always flirted with you. Do you have any other thoughts? I really feel bad that a lot of these in between minis aren't spurring more conversation, but it's so obvious that they were the bridge while the other writers were doing Sins of Sinister, which is a sacrifice I'm willing to make, but they don't leave a ton for conversation.
There's not a lot of meat on the bones anyways. So whatever. I wish these writers were given better stuff to work with, because then I know that we'd have more to say about it, but they weren't, so we don't.
And like I really like Teenie. I think Teenie Howard's great. So, all right, Deadpool 6.
Let's do it.
Written by Alyssa Wong, drawn by
Deadpool.
You know what? I'm gonna leave that in there because that's a fun Deadpool caliber. It's Martin Coccolo that draws it. I left his name out apparently. Deadpool is at a cafe gushing about how in love he is while Drop and Ravonna, 2 Atelier assassins, spy on him from a rooftop. Turns out he's talking to Lady Deathstrike as he's asking her to watch Princess, the Carnage dog from the first arc, Well, he takes Valentine Vuong on a date. She insists she doesn't like any of them, but agrees, and then asks Deadpool what they should do about the assassins on the roof, revealing that they were aware they were being watched. Meanwhile, Valentine's apartment is attacked by their own assassin, Mir. They fight Mir off while drops Deadpool through an entire high-rise. Instead of finishing the fight, Lady Deathstrike insists that he hurries off so he isn't late for his date. Deadpool and Valentine go on a somehow both sweet and terrifying date, including a picnic of spoiled food and a trip to the planetarium, while Lady Deathstrike and Princess continuously foil the assassins in the background without Valentine noticing. Their luck runs out when they go to the movies and are attacked by Last Bite, another assassin, and Ravonna again, but this time she's a werewolf. Lady Deathstrike has moved into the MVP slot for this issue. I love the premise that she's outwardly like, I hate you both, I'm stuck working with you, sure, I'll watch your dumb dog, but then clearly she is super invested in the romance. It's so fun.
No, the idea of like her rooting for this romance so much is very fun. Yeah. This was a fun issue. I really enjoyed this issue.
This was my favorite issue of this run yet. I really, really had fun with it. It was totally the type of story I think leans to a Deadpool I enjoy and plays to Alyssa Wong's writing strengths. It was fun. It wasn't bogged down by drawn out fight scenes. Mm-hmm. I think that's what hurt the end of the first arc for me. Was a lot of it was just them just wailing on Harrower's creations, and that's not what I go to Deadpool for. I don't go for the actual like I like seeing him get the snot beat out of him or him slicing people up, but I don't want to see a long drawn out fight. This issue didn't have any of that. This was all character work, and I really enjoyed it all.
Yes, absolutely. The fun of Deadpool to me is the goofy, quippy, that kind of, and then like pop culture-y stuff. The violence is very secondary for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I was having such a blast with this issue. I was literally sending screenshots to my friends, being like, "Yo, he's just like me, for real, for real." Especially when he's on his date and he's like, many great philosophers have written about love. Simone de Beauvoir, Jean-Paul Sartre, Taylor Swift. And you know what? I think they're all right, especially Taylor Swift. I feel like she just gets me.
Setting him up with Valentine was such a great move because it softened him. Where I feel like I've always kind of disliked how cynical is not the right word, but there is an amount of cynicism to like the Deadpool humor. But the sincerity of his love for Valentine is just so fun. And then the way Alyssa incorporates the pop culture stuff feels way more inspired than some of the like Daniel Way. It felt so much like Family Guy cutaway jokes.
Yes.
And this feels really cohesive and fun and genuinely funny.
I think a lot of it, like you were saying, with Alyssa Wong giving Deadpool Valentine as a love interest. And so having this love interest, especially the love interest like being non-binary and having the pop culture references being what they are, I think is steering Deadpool very, very specifically away from like the incel territory that he so frequently gets written into. And that's where my problem with Deadpool always came from. So I think
even
this
if it
very
wasn't
deliberate
the intention of the writers, it was so often turned into an incel thing, and so to actively push back on that is really cool.
Yeah, especially with like the pop culture references being like Taylor Swift and Twilight and things like that. It's steering it towards a more specific set.
I will let the audience know I got the Swiftie references. I know everyone made fun of me for not getting the Twilight jokes last issue. I'm not that out of touch. I know me some Swift.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if I've mentioned this on here. This is the one series my wife's reading. I got her reading Deadpool, and she's really enjoying it, and I can't wait. She waits till I get my physical, because I get my physical comics through DCBS, so she reads it physically when it comes in at the end of the month. So she hasn't read 6 yet. I can't wait to give her issue 6.
That's going to be fun. That's going to be really fun.
All right. I know we said we've got a ton of books to do. X-Cellent, X-Treme X-Men #5, and Invincible Iron Man #5. Any of those you would be offended if I put them around the Marvel Universe, since my nose is apparently clogging up.
They can all be around the Marvel Universe in perpetuity.
I may eventually want to talk about X-Cellent. I really enjoy that book, but I'm not enjoying the new volume as much. Let's do this the right way. Let's go around the Marvel Universe.
I gotta get the Claudio in every time.
X-Cellent. Did you even read it? I know you didn't finish the first volume, so
I kind of read it. I wasn't paying super attention, if I'm being honest. I read it, but I feel like I didn't absorb much.
I feel like this is a series that has been absolutely kneecapped by releasing 6 issues and then having a second arc planned from the beginning, but waiting a year to release it. About all original characters. These characters only exist either in the first volume of X-Cellent or Ecstatics. They're not, other than Dupe. Dupe has some crossover appeal, but other than Dupe, none of them have main X-Book crossover to them at all. And then there's some real pacing stuff where, again, we're 2/5 of the way through this new mini. It hasn't really done a ton yet. It hasn't really moved the needle on the actual fight or the competition between the two teams for the followers to stop. The one thing I am really enjoying is I feel like each issue it's becoming more and more obvious that Mr. Sensitive is just as bad of a dude. They're trying to paint he wants to believe that the X-Cellent are bad guys and that the new Ecstatics are still not bad guys, but they're all vain pieces of shit. Everybody in this book is a vain piece of shit. So that it's interesting insofar as that, but not a lot is happening. So yeah, it's very easy to not talk much about this issue because it hardly moved the needle.
Yeah, it did very little.
Speaking of a book that totally did move the needle, let's talk X-Treme X-Men #5 that finally finished this incredibly boring sequel to an incredibly boring Chris Claremont, Frank Miller joint from 1985.
These Claremont revisitation, I don't know what to call them. These Claremont nostalgia grabs suck shit.
They tease another one at the end. I don't know if you caught that.
I didn't.
Don't worry, Chris is coming back with another one. And I was so worried it was going to be that Magneto. So I'm really glad that Magneto series is J.M. DeMatteis. I'm so glad that it's him and then Todd Knock, who has been killing on the cover. So the art should be really cool. I'm glad Chris is not writing Magneto because that would be really scary.
Yeah.
I am curious to see what he is writing next. Probably another Gambit thing.
When you say curious, do you mean worried?
No, because I feel like at this point we've been burned enough times. We're gonna always stick it in around the universe.
Yeah.
And if it's right after the kids are born, it's just not getting read. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I'm giving myself. You know what? You probably can average maybe 8 books a week. And if that's where I'm going to be once the kids are born, I am not putting...
No, don't waste one on a Claremont nostalgia.
I'm not wasting one on Claremont.
No.
All right. And finally, the first 5 pages of Invincible Iron Man #5.
Which, I will be honest, I forgot to read.
Right. So, after the last issue, which I still say you should read issue 4, not because of its ties to X-Men, but because he beats the crap out of Fei Long after they paint Fei Long as Elon Musk, so that's great.
Love that.
After that, he visits Emma Frost to be like, I need to know more about Fei Long. And so they go on a horse ride on the beach, which, good imagery, and meet up with Sunfire. And are like, hey, let's let him read your, like, I'm gonna mind dump like your memories to him so he can see what happened on Mars. And so then we see Fei Long like take over Mars, and then Tony's like, hey, thanks. And then he calls some armor, and he's like, you know, Emma, you remind me of someone. And she's like, I get that a lot, and flies away. And that is the entire Emma Frost inclusion in this issue. It does kind of tie into whatever Dugan is going to do, connecting it to X-Men in general, because we do find out Fei Long has built new, better Sentinels. But in the grand scheme of Krakoa, I still feel like that's a weird plot direction, because we've seen them take on way more impressive Sentinels and know that there's other I don't know. Whatever. Stark tech is being used to make Sentinels, and Tony's not real happy about it. But I feel like the bigger issue is what a bait and switch that was, because I don't know if you remember when the solicitations dropped in, they were like, Emma Frost and Tony Stark, what's going on with them? What kind of love interest do they have? Are they getting married? What's going on, guys? Why are these books crossing over? And then it's literally 5 pages. So I guess maybe she's in the next issue some more. But this was the one that had her on the cover, so I'm very confused. Well, our double-length episode only ended up about an hour and 15, so yay.
Hey, that's not bad. Hey, we did pretty good. And, you know, I still consider it an Arakko Public Radio super show.
Long as we don't go for the new... Because I keep referencing it, WWE introduced a new World Heavyweight Championship that's going to be on the other show than the one that... and it's totally ruining the Cody Rhodes story, which our guy Keegan is like the world's biggest Cody Rhodes fan, so I like to tease him about...
I need to clear the air about this, given the Arakko Public Radio wrestling community. Okay, I have no ill will against Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, listen, okay.
I never implied you did.
No, I know. This is for everybody. Okay, listen. When I growing up, I didn't get to watch a lot of wrestling growing up. I mostly relied on like message boards and like friends at school and watching it at friends' houses every once in a while, right? So I'm newer to the wrestling game as far as like watching and purchasing, right? Like I want to say 2016 was like the first time that I was able to watch a Mania on my own.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The first wrestling shirt that I ever owned was Sami Zayn. Okay? I love Sami. I just want to put that out there.
I don't understand why the conversation has become intrinsically like Cody or Sami.
I know.
Because, yeah. Anyways, they introduced this new belt that's not the title that Cody Rhodes has spent a year saying, my dad never got that belt, so I'm going to get that belt. But then they put Cody on the show that has that new belt. So it's actually a pretty cool design. I like the design of the new one.
I like that it's a little bit more old school in its appearance.
So yeah, so anyone that hasn't seen it, Google it. But if you were a fan back in the day, it is definitely meant to look like Big Gold, while also prominently putting the new logo on the belt. So it's kind of a hybrid that I quite enjoy. I think it's a lot better looking than their other belts, honestly. But it's not the WWE title. It completely neuters the story that he's been building for a year since he jumped ship back to the company.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is not a WWE podcast, which we should totally think about launching when we have free time sometime. Ready to talk about next week?
Next week.
We only have 2 books.
Oh, wow. Well, hey, we'll be able to get that done.
Yeah, at this rate, that'll be like a 14-minute episode. We've got Immortal X-Men number 11 and X-Men Before the Fall, Sons of X number 1. So we get both a Gillen and a Spurrier. That's a pretty damn good week in my book.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to do it for us.
I think so too.
We are having a massive season 3 relaunch party next week. It's going to be hopefully some new logos. We're going to relaunch the merch site with a different setup. It's going to be exciting. If you want all the news, follow either of us on Twitter, or do you ever TikTok anymore? I don't TikTok anymore.
I've been posting the occasional talk still.
There you go. Follow us on TikTok. Maybe someday I'll have time to do it again. Join our Discord server. That's the best way to get a hold of me, at least. I love our Discord server. We've got some new blood in there this week. That's been awesome.
Did you know we had a voice channel? We have a voice channel on Discord, y'all. I didn't know that.
I set the thing up, so yeah, I did know it was there. Never used though. We should totally use it. We should have a party. We're probably going to do a mini this week. I'm really excited to do the rate the X crossovers. I want to see everyone's opinion. If you're on our Discord server, you're going to get an invitation to be on that mini episode. So you should totally be on that Discord server so you can join us on those. We haven't done one in a few months, but I love those roundtables.
Yeah, they're fun.
Make sure you like us, review us on all those places, especially Spotify. I've not heard lately. I do not know if we still have the disclaimer. For a long time, we've had a disclaimer where it pops up. It's like, you're one of the first to review. I want to get rid of that disclaimer. So if you can go on, jump on Spotify, listen to us for long enough that it'll let you review, because if you just click in, it won't let you review someone. And then give us the 5 stars. And yeah. Until next time, remember, drunk teenagers ruin everything.
That's bad.
When he mentioned seasons by Tymo, he discussed Tymo. Hey, that's a new shirt. We're creating our own original X-Men named Tymo.